And once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I'm Gavin. I'm here tonight with Pascal. How you doing, Paz?
What's up, Gav?
Good, mate. Good. First game of the season down, 3 points in the bag. Excellent first half, not so good second half. So let's get stuck into it. Let's start at the very beginning. The lineup. It was. We did say that we couldn't really predict this lineup too easily, but I think one thing we didn't see coming was Partey at right back, right?
Oh no, yeah. That came as a bit of a shock. Obviously, when I thought about it, it kind of made sense in some respects, but it did come as a shock. It did come as a shock, that one.
I agree with you. When you look back, it does. I mean, we knew the day before that Gabriel was carrying a knock, right? We said it on the pod that we'd heard he was carrying a knock, and we didn't know if he was going to make the squad. He did make the squad. I think he probably could have played, but I think this gave Arteta an excuse to basically get Partey, Rice, and Havertz in the same team and allow him Havertz to play in midfield.
It seems like it. Also, maybe there was an element of thought of the inverted thing. We know Timber is obviously excellent at covering that left back, but he doesn't really play the inverted side of things as what Zinchenko does, and perhaps the thinking was Partey will provide that because obviously midfield is his natural position. The Gabriel thing made sense because of the knock. I know they said it was tactical, but I can kind of
probably a bit of both, right? I mean,
I
think the knock basically gave Arteta the shove he needed to do it.
Yeah, and we're talking about a guy who's played, numerous consecutive games.
73. It was 73 consecutive.
Yeah, so I mean, if anyone's due some form of rest, especially coming off a slight injury, it would be him.
Yeah, and it's a game you can mess around a bit in. I mean, Nottingham Forest last year had their away record actually was so bad. It was the second worst away record in the history of the Premier League last season. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know it was in the history of the Premier League, but I knew that their record was terrible.
History of the Premier League. It was the second
and that's saying a lot because, was Derby the worst?
Derby was the worst, yeah. Good guess. It's
and
either them or Sunderland. Any bad
that.
record is them or Sunderland,
Exactly. I mean, that, like you said, if we talked about experimentation. He's been doing that all pre-season. We thought this would be the kind of game you could see him do that. I know you had actually predicted Nketiah playing up front. I thought it would be Havertz, to be honest. But again, I think it goes back to your point of incorporating all three, and that was a way he saw to do it.
Yeah, I just think he wanted, with that game being a game that we should win, I think he wanted Havertz in that midfield role, right? The better you get at something is by doing it more, right? Gary Player said, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. And that's kind of what it is. The more he does it, the better he's going to get at it. So it made sense to me. And to be honest, I think it worked. That first half, I thought we were excellent. I really did. I thought we were brilliant in that first half. And I think Partey inverting from the right worked an absolute treat.
Absolutely. I'm also on your line of thinking in terms of how we played in the first half. I think, opening game of the season, there's always... people can be slightly hyperbolic after results or performances on the first game of the season. The important thing is always just to get that result. But I thought the first half, we actually dominated them. We were 2-0 up. We played some really good football at time. I didn't see anything wrong. I thought that it kind of vindicated his selection, to be honest, because we were bossing that game completely.
Yeah, I mean, let's go for a couple of minutes. I mean, the first chance was actually their chance, and it was one of them weird ones where Saliba and White found themselves the wrong way round. And it was really, I don't know what happened there. It was weird, but Saliba got the header, got it away. The guy headed it back in, and I mean, the one Forest forward was offside, and I think they were playing him offside, and Brennan Johnson just ran in between the two of them, and he clearly wasn't offside, and got on the end of it. I don't think that's just something that happens, right? Like you see that weird stuff happen all the time.
Yeah, and I didn't. It was kind of fortuitous. I think. Yeah, maybe you could put a portion of blame to lack of concentration in the defensive side, but I don't think it's one where you look at and you think it's a catastrophic error. It just looked like it was quite fortuitous on their side, and it was also fortuitous that it was Brandon Johnson that went on to it rather than maybe the guy who came. Did he come on? He came on, didn't he?
One scored.
I can't pronounce his name. Yeah. I think he's a better finisher than Johnson.
Too. He should stop scoring against us. Really.
I know. Maybe it's someone we could look at, but yeah, Brendan Johnson. He's kind of.
I think he looks like a good player, Brendan Johnson. I'm not sure that he was given the best of roles. Like, I don't think it suits him to be the lone man up top in a game where they don't have the ball.
Yeah, and with not just, with any big team that these smaller teams play against, we saw it obviously today. It was very evident, but with the Man United Wolves game, but we even saw it with the City game as well. Burnley, they have to take the chance. They've got to, because they will be punished. And you could feel as a fan, as an Arsenal fan, when they miss that chance, you think, I don't think they're going to get many more now. So we can really, start putting the foot on the gas a bit and start getting into this game. But that was a really good chance, actually. Because if he had a bit more composure, I think we would have been 1 down.
I think we're going to concede goals, though, right? The way we defend, how high we push, we leave 2 at the back a lot. Man City do the same thing. We are going to concede goals. Like, Man City could have conceded 2 on Friday night. But, Burnley had chances. We are going to give teams chances. Like we just are. That's the way we play. We concede more goals at home than we do away. And it's not, there's no secret sauce about it. We push high and we're susceptible to one long ball over the top. I mean, this was a bit different because we'd won a header and it was a header coming back in. I think we were playing offside. But I think we are going to concede goals. And it's fine as long as we score more.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, we would need to be a little bit more tight on concentration against the bigger clubs, because the Man Cities,
it's a different game, though, isn't it, against the bigger clubs?
Yeah,
I think you play a different game.
Yeah, you're going to play a different game. You're going to be I think you're just hardwired to be concentrated in that game anyway. But yeah, we'll concede chances. There will be more openings like that. But the good thing was that was really their clear-cut opportunity, besides obviously what we'll talk about later on was the goal. But that's it really from them. So, I thought we dealt with that pretty well, considering we were the most dominant team on the ball.
I think we had 87% of the possession at half time. Like, it was really all we just absolutely dominated. And I thought we moved the ball well. We moved from side to side well. I thought Martinelli was absolutely fantastic. Let's run through the first goal real quick, because that was all about Martinelli winning the ball back. Then he takes on his man. He feints like he's going to knock it back and inside, and he takes on his man instead. The little double drag back with a back heel, I'm pretty sure he meant that, because he didn't go chasing after it. I think he actually meant that. It was a nice turn inside from Eddie, shot on target. I mean, it was a nice goal.
Yeah, it was a good goal. Martinelli, obviously, the skill, he meant that. He was a thorn in their backside throughout most of the game, actually, Martinelli. He played a really good game, I thought. And he's also very defensively switched on, which I like about him. He always tracks back. He's always helping out. But I thought that was a wonderful bit of skill. And credit to Eddie, he took it well. Took a bit of a deflection, I think, which kind of wrong-footed Turner. But I like that from Eddie. I like that because, that's a part of his game. You want to see a bit more of where he'll take it on, take the shot on. He's known more as a poacher, where he's just lurking around. That goal against United is kind of indicative of what you think of it with Eddie, where he's just at the end of the last ball in. But to actually take it on, shift it onto his right foot, bang it in, You want to see that more from him. And credit to him, because I know Arteta at the end had some really good positive remarks to say about him. So I thought it was a very well taken goal.
Yeah, I thought he played well in that first half. He came back and received the ball, was showing for it. The second half, I think we'll come on to the second, obviously, but I think he got lost in that second half. I really do think he got lost. And I thought we'll come on to Arteta's substitutions or lack of as well. But I thought it was a mistake to leave him on because I think the game had passed him by and it was time for the change and he didn't do it. But I thought that first half, I thought he had a really good game.
No, I agree. I think he did, and I think it's what he needed. You know, he's we've had our remarks about Eddie more on ability, not on his attitude, not on his approach to the game.
To that point, don't you think Eddie needs goals more than anyone else? Like Jesus can go 5 games without scoring, and we'll go, well, that's fine. Look at what else he does. I think with Eddie has to score.
He has to score, and I think when he does, you know, and he's not got a terrible goal scoring record for us. I guess, you know, you would expect a little bit more because of the fact that he is more of a potent threat goal scoring wise than you would say perhaps Jesus. But he's definitely someone who is valued highly by Arteta, it seems, especially by the comments he made and to play him. I did not think he was going to play him, but I think this is going to be a trend throughout the whole season where what I think is it's not what he's going to put out. So I was happy for him. Happy he got his goal.
And then the second goal was an absolute peach. Saliba again. The press was suffocating in that first half. I mean, that is probably, I think that is the best pressing football I've seen us play under Arteta. I think that is the best we've been. Every time they got the ball, we absolutely suffocated them and we were getting it back instantly. Saliba wins it back. Little 1-2 with Partey, knocks it inside to Saka. Saka comes inside, opens up his body, and you knew as soon as he opened his body up, you knew where that was going.
We saw the a la Arjen Robben trick that he does when he shifts it onto the left and whips in a curling shot in. Beautiful goal. Beautiful goal. And, you know, this is what we're going to probably see more of. But no surprise for us because we've been talking about him all pre-season as one of the players that we think is going to shine even more this season. And then lo and behold, first game of the season, he goes and smacks a world-class goal in. Again, the Saliba thing, the contribution, this is what we've been talking about has been missed. We were all over them. And then we had the defenders that, I mean, Partey we know is more a midfielder, but he was playing the inverted. Then you have Ben White, who we know can press. You got Timber's pressing, Saliba's there. It's like the perfect ingredients to just press a team like Nottingham Forest. We had it totally under control.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you noticed this, but something weird happened after this goal. So we started in that shape, right? The 4-1-2-2-1, however you want to call it, our usual shape. And Partey inverting from the right, and Timber was kind of holding the width more on the left. Havertz was playing the traditional Granit Xhaka role where he was switching out with Martinelli. Martinelli was coming inside. It was working really well. Declan Rice was playing that 6 role, and I thought Declan Rice was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
We changed after that goal, and we went to a 3 at the back. And we went to basically Jurriën Timber played as the left centre-back. Saliba played in the middle. White played as the right centre-back. Then we made almost like a diamond in midfield. So Partey was at the base. Declan Rice moved to the left-hand side. Ødegaard stayed where he was on the right-hand side. And Havertz played almost like a number 10 with the wide players and Eddie. And I think this is where it started to go wrong. Because Havertz started drifting out of the game completely. He was getting in Eddie's space. Eddie couldn't come back for the ball because Havertz was in the way. We lost a bit of the width. I thought Rice was playing on the edge of their box for a lot of the game. And like I said, I thought Rice had a good game. I thought it blunted Ødegaard a bit because I thought it condensed all the spaces, and not having Partey on that right-hand side. I know he was inverting a lot, but he was still sticking to that side more. And not having Partey there to make those triangles with Saka and Ødegaard the way that the way that Ben White usually does. I really think that was the point where it started to go wrong, when we changed that shape.
Yeah, I think it also probably points to the fact that Rice's best position is the 6. That is his position. He's not right. I don't think anyone. He's not known for his goals. He's not known. Yeah, he's known for his his athleticism. He can run up. He can do the box to box pretty well. But his 6 is his main thing. And I think when he was in that role at the beginning, you really saw the best of him. He had a really good game throughout, I thought. But I thought the best of him was in that 6. And this is where we've had this debate about Partey and Rice, and how that, if 6 is his best position, that's not going to work. I don't know. I just think Arteta has this tendency, is becoming more and more prevalent, where he's overthinking things where he doesn't really need to, because you're winning the game 2-0. Not that you take the foot off the gas, but you can continue it. What's the need to change something where it doesn't really require it? And I think as you've spotted, it had a detrimental effect in the way that we were playing. We certainly also, I think, just started to have that issue, which we've had for a while, where we cannot capitalize when we're leading.
Well, it was too easy as well, wasn't it? This is what happened.
Yeah.
This is similar to what happened at West Ham. It was too easy.
Yeah. And we should have learned by now that that's to really start taking things. Look, it's at home. It's Forest. If you're going to do it that way, you can probably get away with it like we did, because it's Forest. But we didn't against West Ham, and we won't against teams, especially away from home, if we start playing like that. And I think this is the part that I know Arteta is experimenting and stuff, but you've got to be really careful, especially if you're winning the game at the way we were winning it and dominating the way we're winning. Why change that? It doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean, I'm guessing he wanted to try something out, but I think we can say that as an experiment, it didn't really work. And I think let's come on to Kai Havertz, because Kai Havertz. He's a player that is going to split opinion, right? He's always going to split opinion. And for me, there's 2 different parts to Kai Havertz's game. He's pressing and he's off the ball work. He's top class.
Yeah,
he's as good as I have seen. He smothers people. He wins the ball back high. He cuts off passing lanes. He tracks back. When he was swapping with Martinelli, allowing Martinelli to go inside, so clever. I think off the ball, he had a fantastic game. On the ball was a different story, and it's funny because it's the complete opposite of it's the complete opposite of the narrative, right? The narrative around Kai Havertz was, well, your midfield's going to be weak with Kai Havertz in it. You know, he's this ball player that's going to do this. To me, that's not what he is. He's not. He doesn't get the ball. He doesn't wow you with his skill. He doesn't get a ton of assists. He's off the ball work. He's his main thing. And on the ball, I just don't think he impresses himself on games enough. I think he drifts through games, and games happen to him rather than him imposing himself on a game. And there were a couple of times where a ball was laid to him, and if he'd have moved to the ball, he would have taken it. But he stood back and waited for the ball to come to him and lost the ball. To be fair to him, he won it back again, but the momentum was lost. And I think that kind of sums him up a little bit. I think this is, to me, Arteta's biggest job with Kai Havertz, is getting him to be more assertive and actually take control of the game rather than watching it happen around him.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this progresses, because my view on Kai Havertz is, and I've said it a few times, I'm on the fence. I really feel I obviously believe in what the manager sees in him. I can't, he's earning the money. It's not me, but I was never a big fan at Chelsea. I've said this before. I was a little bit miffed when we were in for him, but I'm behind it. I want to see how this works out. I think the issue that we're going to have with him is exactly like, you're coming in, for a start, it has to be understood. You're coming in and replacing one of our best players last year, who's not here now, and did that role fantastically well. Right,
and an incredible fan favourite too. Let's be fair. He would have been in the top 3 players that you didn't want to see go.
Incredible fan favourite. Did the number 8 fantastic. Was up and box to box. Scored goals as well. You noticed him in a game, right? So you're coming in to fulfil that role, which is not a role which you're used to doing anyway. It's going to take a bit of time. So yes, for me, the jury is out on him. But as I said, I think I've got to give Arteta his knowledge, what he sees. I've got to just be behind that. So I think he's got a challenge with him. He's got a big challenge with him. But as you can see, you can buy a Mason Mount like United have. We've still got the whole season left, but you can see what happened with him. It was like you didn't even see him in today's game. So I think it does take time for these players. It's going to take time for him, especially because he's not used to that role. So I don't want to go too hard on him. And I think who you're replacing has to be factored in. It's like Eduardo coming in for when Henry left. You're replacing someone who was just an absolute cult hero at the club and was part of the reason we were so good last year.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for Havertz because I think most of his best work is the stuff that we generally don't see. You don't notice a lot of the off the ball stuff that he does, and that is kind of his strength. And I'm learning this as we go along because he's not what I thought he was. Right. So, I mean, I'll admit it. I was the same as everyone else. I was expecting some silky footballer that didn't want to do the dirty work. And what we've actually got is someone that is quite happy to do the dirty work, but isn't really at this moment in time forceful enough when he's got the ball. So it's almost the opposite of what I was expecting to get. But I did think when we were in that shape initially, I actually thought Havertz was pretty good in that first 35 minutes. I thought he was pretty good. And I think he got screwed a little bit by that change in shape. And I understand Arteta wanting to try it out, but when it didn't work, first of all, I think he should have changed it back. When it didn't work because we started getting all that sterile possession and it really wasn't going anywhere. And secondly, like I said, and we may as well come on to this now, the subs are an issue. The subs, they were an issue with Arteta last year, they were an issue the year before, and it looks like they're going to be an issue again. I honestly think if Arteta could get away with never making a substitution, I think that's what he would do.
Yeah, it's a worry sometimes because, my initial reaction was Timber should have been off at halftime. He should have just subbed him at halftime. Why play the guy? It did look dodgy when I saw the first, the thing that which has probably caused this knee injury. So why not make the sub at halftime?
And we're 2 up in a game that we're going to win.
Yes.
So you got Kivior sitting there on the bench. Gabriel was on the bench, and even if you didn't want to put
Tomiyasu
on
there
that early, Tomiyasu, who eventually came on for him, he's there. So why not just make the change?
Yeah, it's a really baffling one, but I think you've said it, earlier that he is so inclined to make substitutions at halftime, unless
disinclined.
My bad. Yeah, disinclined. You're absolutely right. He's inclined not to make subs, I should say, right?
There you go.
But he's what I think is concerning is that, apparently the doctor said he was fine.
But
so I get that. But
even
exactly.
So, it's opening day.
Yes.
2 up at half time.
Yes. You could see it. It was just even watching it. It was a little bit worrying, wasn't it? When you saw it, it's just the way he fell, the way he came back on. He wasn't really himself. So I'm like, what really is the loss here in a game against Forest, knowing that you've got a tough away game coming up? You're going to have some, you might as well just let the guy. But I just think he has this tendency, and we see it with Saka a lot, where he just does not want to substitute players at any point. Certain players at any point at certain times.
Well, look at United tonight, Pass. we sat there and watched that game, and I said to everybody, if he don't take Martinez off at half time, Martinez is going to be sent off. Right? You could see it clear as day. It was coming. He would have gone. And Ten Hag, who I don't believe in the way a lot of people do, but Ten Hag hooked him and threw on a far inferior player than what we would have been bringing on. Do you know what I mean? Like he doesn't even get in our squad. So if you're putting on Tommy or Kivior, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So Ten Hag was proactive and he took him off before he got sent off.
Yeah, and that's the way you do it.
I tell you, he did. To be fair to him, he did take Ben White off in a similar scenario against United last year, and I was shocked when he did it. But he did it. But I don't understand here why you don't err on the side of caution. And and we've got to be clear here as well. There's no guarantee that it would have made a blind bit of difference. There may have been no further damage done at all in that first 7 minutes, that second half. That it may have made no difference. But why risk it?
Yeah, it is just really baffling. And I just think that hopefully this season he starts getting this a little bit better at it, because it's something that's been probably, if you're going to criticize him over the last few years, that is the area where I feel he suffers in, where the timings of the substitutes, sometimes the subs he actually makes, I just think he needs to be a lot better at it. And I think we saw an example of that in the game just gone.
And we saw more examples than that. It clearly wasn't working in the second half. It was all that sterile possession. We had the two Declan Rice efforts, the one that got pushed onto the post, and then he had the other one where he got the volley into the ground. Beyond that, we had nothing in that second half. He didn't sub Trossard on until the 74th minute. And then his next sub was Gabriel on 87 minutes. He's used 3 of 5 subs. It just, it is baffling to me. It wasn't working. So make the subs. Just bring some players on. Partey was dead. He was out on his feet. And let's go on to their goal, because their goal, Partey gets caught. He can't get back. It's Saka trying to get back in Partey's place, because he physically cannot get back.
Which is normal of Partey.
Of course it is. It was in what did they score? The 80-something minute? Of course it is. Partey's not a 90-minute player. We know this. And you're playing him as an inverted right back before he even went into midfield. Yeah. So obviously he should not have lasted the game. We had enough players on that bench for him not to. Even if he'd have brought Kivior on at half time, it would, or Tomiyasu, you still can bring the other one on. Gabriel was still sitting there on the bench. It made no sense, the subs that...
Who was it Partey that Elanga span? Was it Partey?
No. I think it was Saka, because Partey hadn't got back. So Saka had to get back in, get back in Partey's place. And then a minute after, Partey got caught again. It wasn't actually that different to what happened in the Charity Shield, when Partey
this is what I was going to refer to.
all the way up the pitch. The same thing happened here. He just got caught all the way up the field and couldn't get back. He has to use these subs better. He has to use the subs better. It's the one thing I love Arteta. My one complaint with him is that he has to use them subs better.
He has to, especially now with the squad that we have. You probably could have seen Smith Rowe maybe come on. I don't get it. I don't get it sometimes, and it is worrying, and it affects games, and it could be the difference between winning a game and losing one, or drawing one. So I hope there is some learning from it, and we'll be previewing that game, but going into the next game, it's an away game. You can't be too experimental for these ones. The Palace and these type of teams, you're playing them away. You've got to really be, strong on what your lineup's going to be, and not experiment with things that you've not used before or don't know if that's going to work. So hopefully I'd rather these things happen at the very beginning of the season than we're talking about this come April or March.
For sure. The other thing that I want to talk about is Ben White's inability to take a throw on and get the ball back in play. He actually got booked, and he got booked for time wasting. Ben White wasn't time wasting. This is how Ben White takes throw-ons. I don't know if the movement isn't there, but he cannot get the ball in play. I pointed this out to you, a year ago?
Yeah.
He can't get the ball in play. He stands there with the ball in his hands, and he just can't see where to throw it to. surely they've got to try and devise some way to get that ball out of his hands and back into play.
Yeah, it's I'll be honest, I did not study that as much as you have. So, but I take your word for it.
Throw-ons are a pet peeve of mine.
I'm now gonna study it now.
It goes.
Well, Bellerin, you had a lot with Bellerin. Remember in his
and before that, I think I saw Freddie Ljungberg take 4 throw-ons, and I think they were all foul throws. He used to, when he try and throw it in quick every time, and it's one of my pet peeves when I used to watch MLS.
I know it's Lee Dixon's, because every time he's on and someone does a foul throw, he says they should be docked 2 weeks' wages. It
drives me nuts, and it doesn't usually get called. It was only Bellerin that ever got called for it, and I don't know why. But you see foul throws in every game. But Ben White's, he just doesn't seem to be able to get the ball back in play. He stands there, he looks. That booking, he wasn't intentionally time wasting. He took no more time over that than he would in the second minute.
It was just a crap throw.
He just can't get the ball. He just can't get it in play. He just stands there with it in his hands. It is a really, really bizarre thing watching him try and get a ball, because we don't have the problem from the other side. Timber was getting the ball in just fine. It just seems to be from that right hand side, and I don't know what it is about that. So that was, I mean, it's a good 3 points. It's a good way to start the season. I think we expected it. Was hoping for more. I think I predicted 6. We didn't quite get there. I was maybe a little bit too optimistic.
Predicted 3-0.
Yeah. So you were a lot closer than me. But overall, I mean, 3 points is 3 points, right?
Yeah, it is. And if you want to put it into a little bit of context, of course, we always concentrate on ourselves. But if you look at all the other opening games besides Newcastle, I don't think, and Man City, yes, they did look pretty impressive, but it wasn't as if Burnley were poor. They were just crap in front of goal. But I wouldn't say anyone besides those two set the world on light. Man United were awful today. In fact, it was one of the worst performances. I think any of those top 6 teams, that was by far the worst I'd seen. But opening game of the season, we talked about it historically. Last season, obviously, we started well, but historically, we've never really been. It's been a dodgy, our opening game. So,
well, even the Invincible season, we started with a 2-1 win at home over Everton.
Yeah. So it takes a little. You've got to click in. You've got to get fitness up to scratch. We had Zinchenko out, obviously, as we know, and we did not have Jesus. I do feel it's no alarm bells for me, really. We got the win. That's all that matters. And I didn't think the performance was anything like some of the other teams that we saw during the weekend. So I wouldn't go away with that, with taking anything other than, okay, it's the opening game of the season. That's all.
So who would you say your star man was on the day, Martinelli?
Yeah, Martinelli I thought he's just, he's nailed that left-sided role. He's just so energetic. He's always wanting the ball. He's one of these wingers you love because he always wants to attack, goes for it all the time. He's becoming a lot better with the ball. And I think his defensive work is outstanding. I also thought Rice had a really good game as well. I thought he was better in the first half, like you said. It's not his fault that he was pushed up further, but I think he was all over. He was everywhere in that game. He was composed on the ball. But yeah, those two were the big standouts for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I was going to say that I thought Rice had a very good game as well, but I think Martinelli was the stand. He's just so energetic. He just makes stuff happen. Like he's so direct, and he just makes things happen.
Yeah, I mean, you were never a big fan of him, but if you compare it to like a Haleb or someone like that, where they would always like cut back and then, or Nasri, there was always this way of it. But Martinelli's refreshing because there's always a direct approach.
Well, that was the goal, right? That's what I was saying. When he got that back, he looked back to go inside and was just like, no, I'm just going to beat my man on the outside. And that's what he did. 2 of them there. Don't worry about it. I'm going to go.
You love it, that traditional winger that just goes for it. And that's what I love about him a lot. He's a very, very positive player. But can't go unnoticed how much he helps defensively. And I love that about him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that might be needed moving forward, but we'll get into that in part 2. So All right, mate. Well, that's the game covered. So we'll come back in part 2 and talk about the other stuff. You good with that?
Sounds good.
Okay, mate. See you after the break.
Yeah.
Bye. Hey guys, just a couple of quick halftime messages for you. Firstly, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us reach a wider audience, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Secondly, we're on all the social media platforms as the NN Pod. We're really trying to build a strong Gooner community. So next time you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, look us up, give us a like or a follow, send us a message, interact with other listeners, or just have a look around. Thanks for listening from myself, Paz and Juz. We really appreciate it. Welcome back into the Non-Negotiables podcast. This is part 2. Paz, I think the big thing from the weekend, obviously, other than the 3 points, is the injury to Timber. It's looking like a full rupture of the ACL. Probably not going to see him again this season. That is a massive blow for him and for us.
Yeah, man, I was so gutted about that. Honestly, I was really, well, I don't know. You don't even need me to explain it. I think you can hear my previous podcast of how, and Justin as well, how excited I was about him, and I thought I didn't see anything that was suggesting otherwise by his early performances pre-season and even that game itself. It's just so upsetting when it's only their first game and he's back in. You're excited to see a new signing, and then something as crazy as that is it doesn't look good. I mean, they're saying something like could be 6, could be 8 months. Obviously, you have to think about fitness, getting them up to fitness. So you're definitely a big chunk of the season at least. But it's pretty sad stuff, and it's quite weird this weekend of how many. I mean, over the last, how many ACLs have been given way. I mean, you had Mings, and then you had Militao, and now obviously Timbers one. I was hoping it would be less.
Courtois. ACL went as well.
Yeah. It's quite worrying, isn't it? And there could be, this thing about what we were talking about, many minutes being played. There's an argument about that.
Well, we've been kind of non-stop, haven't we? I mean, 19-20, the season obviously stopped in March, went on. We basically went straight. They had an impromptu 6 to 8 weeks off, which wasn't really 6 to 8 weeks off because no one knew when they were going to start playing again. So they didn't really have any break then. Then we went straight into the next season. After that, we had the Euros that had been delayed for a year. So then we go straight from the Euros into the next season with a World Cup in the middle of it. We didn't finish playing until June last year, and we're playing again. Like, you're going to see this stuff happen when it's just an insane amount of football with no break. This is basically every player in the world is how Alexis was between 2012 and 2016.
Yeah. And look at what was Fofana's also. Fofana's
that was an ACL as well. Yeah, but
ACL as well.
And he's broken down time and time again.
Yeah, he has.
That could just be a thing where he's an ox thing where the body just can't take it.
Yeah. It's just really disheartening, especially when I'm going to definitely my signing of the season won't be him now, unfortunately. But I hope he just has a speedy recovery. He seems like a top guy, and I think he was just came into our team as if he'd been there for years. That's what I loved about it. It just right in, put in a position which is not his natural position, played it well, seems to be a great character to have around, positive, everything. So, yeah, I just hope he gets a speedy recovery.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for him because he bedded in well. And he was going to be an important part of this team. He was going to play a lot of games. He was going to play a lot of games at both fullback positions. There was going to be a lot of football for him this year. He'd been here 2 months and he'd already worked himself into Zinchenko's primary backup, like you said, on his weaker side. So it's a real shame for him being a young player. And then obviously we got Euros next summer too. So he's, it's
and
going to make the squad for that.
Euros, and then for us, the Champions League now. And, what's worrying me is now we have the same defense we had last season. And part of the reason he was brought in was that cover for Saliba or for, as we've seen, Zinchenko, and not just, no offense to the guy, but not just Tomiyasu cover. We're talking about real quality cover, like more or less the same level, as close as you can get to those players. And I just feel for us as a team now, it puts us in a situation which he was there to eradicate that situation, and now we're back to it. So it's really disheartening. And of course, for him, the Euros next year, I think he'd be all right for that, but we'll have to see what they say. I think they're going to give a definite answer on a diagnosis, I think, over the next few days. I guess there's you see, because it's quite intricate ligament. Like there could be the meniscus could be also damaged as well. It depends how big the tear is, what grade it is. All of these factors are going to play, but we're going to have to know. What is unequivocal is that he is definitely out for months. That's, I think, unequivocal.
And such a shame, like you said, we just found brilliant cover for a player that isn't the most reliable. And now we're back to where we were again. I mean, we're maybe a little bit stronger because Kiwior is bedded in now. He's not a new guy. As it stands at this second, Tomiyasu is still fit. But obviously, you can't rely on that. But there's been nothing to show that that's going to continue to be the case. Zinchenko is in full training. I was actually surprised he didn't make the bench at the weekend because he was in all the training photos. So at this point, we don't really know what's up with him. We have no idea if he's going to be available for next Monday or not.
It could be to my hunch is, or based on what I've seen, if you think about it, he hardly had any preseason. He didn't play any games. Minutes. Yeah, so I think it's more fitness. That's what my hunch is. And I think that's the right decision to make. You've got Nottingham Forest at home. We were talking about not risking Timber in the second half. I think not putting Zinchenko in the squad at all, having a game, anything to just preserve him for tricky away games, Man United coming up, I'm all for, especially now more than ever before. But so if it means it's just him regaining fitness, but I'm pretty sure if it's just a fitness thing, he'll be available, Palace, because it's next Monday, isn't it? So we've got more.
Yeah, we get the extra couple of days. You get the extra 48 hours, right? So that is
exactly.
That is a good thing. And let's see, he was training last week. He was in all the pictures, so he's got to be close if he's not there. And
it has to be.
And we know that if Zinchenko's fit, Zinchenko starts, right? It doesn't matter who else is here or there. If Zinchenko's fit, Zinchenko starts.
I don't think Timber was going to replace Ben White and the way Ben White's been playing at this moment.
No, I think had we gone into next Monday with everybody fit, I mean, Timber would obviously have started and Zinchenko would have come off the bench because he's had no minutes. Yeah. All things being equal, if everybody was up to speed and fit, Timber would have been the one on the bench. But what a player to have on the bench.
This is the thing. And I think it would give us a more privileged position that we don't have to risk Zinchenko every single game. We don't have to risk him in certain cup games. But I think it goes to your point about Kiwior. I'm quite optimistic about him. I think he's a good, skillful player. He's very highly rated in the Polish national team and in Poland. And I think we're going to see a better player with him. He's very tidy. He's also someone you can see that Arteta likes in the way that he plays. And I don't think it impacts our transfer plans in terms of getting rid of selling Tierney and Holding. I don't think it makes a difference.
I don't think it makes a difference to that. I don't think that's going to change.
No.
It's funny you say that because I was going to say to you, would you, and I don't want to preview the Palace game, so I'm not interested in what you think Arteta would do or won't do. Would you prefer to see Kiwior there over Tomiyasu, or would you rather see Tomiyasu start at left back?
That's a good question because I'll be honest with you.
I think I'm on the Kiwior side.
I'm with it as well. Yeah, I don't want to go hard on Tomiyasu. He's been out for a while, so I'm not
Yeah, for
expecting
sure. And he's a
fireworks.
good player. I like Tomiyasu.
Yeah, I think he's definitely part of our squad and important player, part of our squad. I'd prefer him probably at right back anyway. I think, yes, that Liverpool game always stands out where he came on when he was at left back and he handled Salah very well. But I think Kiwior seems the type of, he's more left-sided anyway. And I think can do a better job in terms of inverting himself in that, maybe a little bit more inverted in the role than Tomiyasu. So, I'll probably have Kiwior.
Yeah, I think I would. Do you think there's any chance we go?
But you had a theory, didn't you?
I do, but that's for the Palace.
That's for later.
Yeah, it's just for the Palace game. I just got a feeling.
Okay.
I just got a feeling about what he's going to do for the Palace game, but we'll do that later in the week.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But do you think there's any chance we go into the market for a left back or someone to play there?
I was thinking that. I think it will depend on how long Timber's out, because I think if he's
and
out,
players have got to go, right? Like unless Tierney and Holding are gone, I don't see how we can do it.
Yeah, now they got to go, and that's why I was saying. I think actually, I was about to say that. I think it actually intensifies our desire to get rid of both of them, to sell both of them, because I think we might look for someone. It will be dependent, I think, on how long Timber's out. If he's out for more than 8 months. And we're talking for most of the season, then we've got to be thinking about that. Now, it doesn't have to be a player of his price tag, but can be a loan player. I don't think, I know we were in for Fred Sneijder, who I seemed pretty kind of ideal for what Arteta's looking for. Don't think
he's a right back though, so I'm thinking more.
But like can play left, can't he?
Left.
Can he play left?
I haven't seen him do it. I'm not saying he can't because I don't know enough. I've not seen him, but he's primarily a right back. And I think if you're going to buy someone, to me, I think I would go for a left back. I think my thing is the same as pretty much what you're saying is, what do you do? We can't go spending 50 million on one, and even if we could, who would there be?
That's the problem. So, you're maybe looking at a loan deal for someone or, a young player that has, it's going to be, I think
most likely option is we just go with what we've got, right?
Now that's where I think it depends on the injury, because I think if he's injured for 6 months, then you go with what you've got. It's not too much. I think if he's risked for the whole season and you sell Holding and you sell Tierney, I think there's a possibility we bring in some cover.
That's one to watch for sure, because I don't think Arteta's going to be. I think we went into Saturday with Arteta pretty happy with this squad, right? Like I think he was quite content with the squad. I'm sure he'd like to add one or two more. David Raya was in the ground on Saturday. I'm guessing he got in without the ticket chaos fiasco. David Raya was in the ground.
Quite funny, he was stuck in the big
in the queue outside. Yeah, so that one's imminent. So that one's basically done. But the one today, I don't know if you saw this, but at about 3:00, I guess it was, there was a couple of weird little things that came out on Reddit and on Twitter that someone had said. Arsenal have been very surprised at how slow it's been in getting their players out. They expected more interest in Holding. They expected more interest in Tierney. They expected more interest in Lokonga. They expected Balogun to be gone by now. And they didn't say that they were panicking, but they were a little bit concerned that these players hadn't gone. Don't be surprised if you see a shock sell. Not 20 minutes later, a report comes out saying that Saudi Arabia have made contact with Gabriel Magalhaes's people. I think now we definitely won't let Gabriel go. But I would hate to see Gabriel go. I mean, they come in and give you 150 million, of course. You've got to sell him. But I would hate to see Gabriel go, and I don't see it happening. What do you make of that?
It's an interesting one. I would say, along what you're saying, if they come in with an absurd amount of money, I think we'd find it hard to turn that down. But you have to have a replacement in mind. Gabriel's not an easy defender to replace. He's been fundamental to our defense over the last few seasons. He's still young. So it will be dependent, but I could see it as a possibility if the fee is high enough.
I mean, there's no suggestion that he'd even entertain the move, by the way. I want to make that clear. The only thing that was said is that they have made contact with his representatives. There's nothing else been said at this point. I just think, especially with this injury to Timber, I think it'd be pretty nuts.
It would be nuts, but I think it goes to a deeper point of what was mentioned there. It is surprising. Well, I think me and you have already said Tierney and Holding. I think the esteem that Arsenal fans hold Tierney in, especially, is a little bit more, I think, based on his character and his personality more than his actual ability. I've had debates with Arsenal fans, and they've said that I'm being harsh on him and stuff like that. But I just feel for what we're looking for, what a team needs, he's not that. Now,
well, if he was, he'd be gone by now. It's as simple as that. He would be gone.
The point.
I just seen today that Newcastle have opened talks with Chelsea for Cucurella. Newcastle were not.
I saw both, though. I saw both. I saw
Cucurella. I saw that a journalist up there had linked him again with Tierney on loan.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's like the Sociedad. Why are we getting loan offers again? It has to be not option to buy. It has to be to buy. Obligation to buy has to be. I just find it baffling. Their loan offers, Holding are getting 2 million offers from Besiktas or whoever it was. So I get it. And Balogun's partly our fault as well, because we are holding out for a much higher amount. So we can't be surprised by a player that's played in Liga. And let's be honest, like you've already mentioned, Lacazette scored more goals than him in that division. So I think people are reading between. But I think Balogun goes. I think I'm hearing a lot of rumours Monaco are going to come back in. And I think if they're close to that 50 million euro tag that we have on him, it should just sell him. I think we're gonna sell him.
I'm not sure it gets close to that 50 million tag, to be quite honest with you. But I think we will sell him. It's another one. Then we're going to hang on until we have to. But the problem with Balogun is that, we're looking at all these stupid fees this summer, right? We're looking at all these massive fees, but it's all the same clubs that are paying them, right? It's either Saudi Arabia, it's us, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, Newcastle, Liverpool. They are the clubs with the money. If Balogun...
West Ham now as well.
Yeah, West Ham have got plenty of it. But this is what I mean. If those are not the clubs in for Balogun, if the clubs in for Balogun are Monaco and they're Inter Milan and they're AC Milan and they're, teams like that, we're not going to get that sort of money out of them because they just don't have it. They're not like the Premier League clubs that are going out and splashing all this cash.
Yeah, and that's the worrying side of it. The teams that are being linked to him. Whenever I see a team from Italy, I just think this is going to be an absolute waste of time. It's going to be with the amount of, if you think about the Torreira deal and all of that, it's all waste of time if it's an Italian club. The only Monaco, I could maybe see it. I can see it. I think that they have got the money. They're in the same division that he went on loan to, so they know what his capabilities are. So he's playing in the same. He is proven in that league, so it does make sense. And I don't think they're low on cash. They will have. Whether to get that 50 million is obviously debatable. Now, within our division, I could see a West Ham go for him. Absolutely could. I could see even a Brighton picking him up. Although they do have Ferguson, they do have that João Pedro, and Welbeck.
Welbeck's their star.
Yeah. Even though Ferguson was absolutely outstanding when he came on, like I said, he would be. But you're right. I think the pool is small. It's small even in the Premier League because we all know who the cash-rich clubs are. Although, to be fair, though, on a counter argument, his wages won't be that high.
No.
If you look at the striker pool at the moment, it's low. If you think of how much strikers are going for in general, he's actually not at a bad price. So I could still see a newly promoted club maybe coming in, but a Premier club, remember, a Premier League club does earn well. So I could still see one of the newly promoted teams, Brighton, as I said, Everton. I mean, they need a bloody striker.
Yeah. Well, one team who it won't be is a team that were linked to him last week, and it kind of gathered up pace this morning. I don't know if you've seen this, but Tottenham have been linked to him, and I just
150 million.
I just don't see that. Even at 50 million, I don't see that happening.
Well, I mean, look, they did get. Okay, who did they get? Who they got directly from? Adebayor wasn't directly from us. That was actually. Didn't they get Bentley? Didn't Bentley come?
No, Bentley was via Blackburn. I think Rowan Ricketts might have gone direct.
Oh, right,
okay. They're all free. It was a free transfer. It wasn't.
So it's never been any. It's never been anyone.
We've gone the other way, haven't we? Because we had Pat Jennings off of them. We had Willie Young off of them. So we've taken a few off of them. Obviously, sold that was on a free. Yeah. But I don't know if anyone has gone the other way. Direct. I would have to check that. There's no one in my memory. I'm pretty sure Rowan Ricketts did go directly from us to them, but it was out of contract thing. We didn't sell him there.
If they came for a £45 million bid or 50 million bid for Balogun, Arsenal would. I think they'd still sell him to Spurs.
Do you? I don't think they would.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. I don't think it's.
Maybe they're not viewing them as competition.
Well, no, I don't think they do. I don't think they do view him as competition, but I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is if he goes there and hits 30 goals, I think you've caused yourself more of an issue than by turning down an extra 10 million and just saying to him, look, Monaco's where you're going to go. But of course, he might want to stay in the Premier League. That's the other thing here. We're talking about sell him here, sell him there. This ain't the NFL. He gets a choice.
The thing is that we don't help ourselves in the value of these players because he's been frozen out completely. He's not even played a game in preseason. I know there's talk of him having a bit of an injury at some point, but he hasn't really. When he was available, he was hardly playing. He's frozen out at the moment in the first team, and yet we're slapping on a price tag for someone. It kind of is a bit, I don't think, unless it's Saudi Arabia, these clubs aren't stupid. They're going to look at that and think, well, hey, you don't even need him in your team. You're not even using him in any entity, and you're asking us to pay 50 million euros for it. Or 50 million pounds or whatever it is they're asking for. So I don't think we're helping ourselves in this matter either by freezing him out completely like that. If he had maybe a sub appearance or get something under his belt, then maybe have more of an argument. But it's a tough one when you have these players not even in the squad, not even in the team at all.
Yeah, I mean, completely ostracised.
Completely ostracised.
There's no way in the world he's getting any game time.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're expecting big fees. It's a difficult one to get, I think.
Yeah, it is tough when you're not using someone because they're unwanted. So the ticketing fiasco, Pass. So the club went to an all-digital format. They told everyone to be early. Of course, it doesn't work like that. It's a 12:30 kickoff, which is not really the game that you want to introduce it for. Personally, I don't know why they didn't just push it back a week or a couple of weeks. This was clearly not the game to do it, but it wasn't that big a surprise to see the chaos that unfolded.
Yeah, I didn't, to be honest, I didn't read too much about it, but was it a collapse of the systems?
It seems like the system went down. It just wasn't
working, right?
It seems like the system crashed and went down. I think basically it got overloaded. The people who went early, who were there by kind of between 11 and 11:30, they were all fine. The people that got there after 12, it seems like there was, you know what it's like at football. You're always going to get 15 minutes before kickoff is when most people get in the ground. And I think they had a lot of people who didn't know what they were doing. They had a lot of people because you know what it's like. Remember when we went to that Inter Miami game, mate, and you didn't have your ticket downloaded into your Apple wallet.
Yeah.
And you can't use screenshots anymore because these are all dynamic tickets. I think we had some of that going on. A lot of our season ticket holders are obviously older. They probably weren't that up with a system. And then it seems like the system itself failed, and they did the very IT thing. I wish Justin was here to run us through how you turn something off, count to 10, and turn it back on again.
Yeah. It looked like a bit of a mess. And I saw the big queues outside. Were they still letting people in, but in a manual process in a way, or looking at the barcode or something like that?
I can only go by what I've heard from people who were actually there. I've got some texts from mates who were trying to get in about how cat it was, because none of my mates are early to anything. So they were always going to be the ones stuck outside. I could have told you that. But one of them said that basically what they started doing was they were you're supposed to scan your phone at the turnstile, right? And then the turnstile automatically lets you in. They were basically overriding the turnstiles, and people were just flashing their phone at them. They weren't even checking. They just saw that it kind of looked like a ticket on the phone and were just letting them through the gate. But see, this is a problem for some people too, because there's that thing now where you can only miss a certain amount of games on your ticket, right? Or you lose it. So a season ticket, if you don't go to at least, 15 games or whatever it is, you lose it. So a lot of these people who have been through the turnstiles without scanning their things, they're saying, well, does that count as one? I mean, for most people, it's not going to matter, but for some people, that could matter. I've got a mate who does. I got a mate who wasn't there. He does a ticket share with someone, right? So he lives in Ireland, and he goes over to about half the games, and then he's got two mates who basically share out the other games between them, and they take it in turns. And his mate was one of the ones who just basically flashed his phone and they let him through. And he said their ticket gets used every week, so it don't matter. But if you weren't someone that used it every week, you might lose that as one of your credits to the games you've been to.
Yeah. Then that would be a bit of a problem. And what do you do to prove it?
I don't know. I mean, my guess is because of the fiasco, they're probably literally just going to mark every season ticket as attended for that game. I don't see any other way you can do it. But this was so predictable. And I do wonder how much of this, and I've said this to you before, we built the Emirates at exactly the wrong time. Exactly the wrong time. Like, we literally finished that building 3 years before the iPhone. Technology moved on so quick in the next 5 years after we built that stadium that it looks like an old stadium already. And I mean, I guess really it's nearly 20 years old now. It's 17 years old. So, but I think we just got that. The timing of it just didn't work. We got fucked all round.
From a technological side, yeah, but do you think from a financial side it did work?
No, because we got absolutely fucking clattered with a property crash, didn't we? We redeveloped Highbury, and then 2008 everything crashed. So we got hammered with that as well. So we were just we couldn't have chosen a worse time really to build a new stadium. I know the cost of everything has soared since, so I'm sure it would have been more expensive to build it now. But we also wouldn't have lost our arse on the Highbury Flats the way we did. And it's just, we just got unlucky. I mean, and I don't know, I'm not saying it's anything to do with that, but I do wonder if the infrastructure in that stadium just isn't really equipped for this.
It's very possible, and it is crazy when you think about it. It's nearly 20 years that.
Well, the North Bank roof leaks, right? We've all seen the picture of the North Bank, the water pouring through the roof of the North Bank whenever it rains. I mean, there's still, they did a lot to it over the summer, but there's still a lot that needs doing to that stadium to bring it up. And we think of it as a new stadium. Me and you think of it as a new stadium because we obviously, we grew up in Highbury, but to a lot of fans now, it's the only stadium they've ever known. It's been for a long time.
What's a newer stadium besides Spurs to ours then?
Who was built after that? So obviously West Ham's free stadium that was built after ours.
That's the
Man City's free stadium that was built.
Was Man City's wasn't Man City's just main road, or did they actually build?
No, it's a new one. They built it for the Commonwealth Games. It was built for the Commonwealth Games. It was the City of Manchester Stadium for the Commonwealth Games. And then Man City took it over after the Commonwealth Games in 2010, I want to say.
Right. Okay.
So they took it over. Really. They took it over there, and there's quite a few newer stadiums. I mean, obviously a lot of the older ones are still there. But it just seems whenever we try to do anything like this, it goes wrong. And I think that perfect storm of opening day of the season, 12:30 kickoff. You also had the England's women's game on at the same time. And I think it was the perfect storm. And basically, this fiasco was kind of just waiting to happen. And lo and behold, it did.
Yeah. It's from what I'm hearing, it was a bit of a mess. And when I switched on the TV, because at that what was it 7:30 kickoff, I was like, did I get the time wrong? I was like, I could have had an extra. I thought I'd got something wrong with the time. I was like, I could have got an extra half an hour sleep or an hour sleep, and then I realized it was actually delayed because of that. I saw the queues outside. I must have been horrendous to deal with that. But
well, at one point, I wondered if the game was going to go ahead. Do you remember Leeds last year when we had that long delay because the refs' mics weren't working? You remember that? We got delayed by about 45 minutes after that. And I just wondered if there was a point where they were just going to call the damn thing off.
How did it get back running? Did it just... I
wasn't joking, they turned it off and turned it on again.
Oh...
That is what they did. Someone flicks a massive, I bet it was a massive switch, right? Huge handle, massive switch, pulled it down, all the power went out, count to 10, turn it back on, everything comes on.
And then it all worked.
And it all, I mean, that's what they say.
Never lets you down, does it?
I know that plenty of people got in without scanning tickets. I know that for a fact because I know people who did get in without scanning tickets. So that they're saying that basically it was just a minor glitch and it came back online. I don't know, but I'm telling you now, I've been in crushes outside of football grounds. I remember after the 1-1 in 88-89 with Liverpool at home in the December, there was the official attendance that day was like 56,000. I'm telling you, there was a lot more than that there. And we were coming out, me and my granddad were coming out, and we used to come at our entrance to the west stand was the same as the North Bank entrance, right? So it was on that corner, and we come out there, and my feet were not touching the ground. I was being carried out with a crowd because I was only 11, 10. I might even have been 9 at the time, and I was being carried along. My feet weren't on the ground, and the guy behind me was pushing the guy in front of me to basically make it so that I had a little bit of room to breathe. And that was fucking 5 months before Hillsborough. Do you know what I mean? Like that at the time, it's funny. After Hillsborough, it didn't seem so funny. But they're lucky that it wasn't worse outside the ground, because they're saying there were 35,000 people outside the ground pushing to get in them turnstiles, and that could have been. And
you know what could be worrying as well is that you could get opportunists that could just try and go in and take advantage of that situation.
Look at England in the Euros. Look at the Euro final. Some of the most disgraceful behaviour you've seen from people without tickets.
Yeah. Or even trying to enter the stadium. That's what I mean. And then you have a real problem because then you have the overpopulated stadium.
Yeah. And you can't, and they obviously ain't carrying out proper checks, right?
No.
So anyone's walking in, they're not checking what anyone's carrying in with them. So it's a fiasco, and hopefully they get it sorted for next time, because you don't want to see that again. But there's been a lot of grumblings about that side of the club over the summer. I don't know if you've read a lot of this, but there's a new girl in charge of all this stuff in the ticketing and the hospitality and stuff. And they've screwed the Ashburton Army out of a lot of tickets.
I heard about that. And I did hear about that.
Yeah, and it's not gone down
which is really, that is your atmosphere, isn't it? Having those.
It is. And I'm not blaming that for the lack of atmosphere on Saturday, because I actually thought the atmosphere in the first half was really good. And the atmosphere died as the game died. I think we went 2-0 up. It was so easy that I think everyone just kind of forgot where they were. And we've seen it before when we've had good teams and you go up like that early, everyone just relaxes a little bit and the place gets a little bit quiet. And I think that's what happened on Saturday. But it definitely doesn't help that them boys should have got more tickets, not less.
Yeah, I agree. This is your core fan base. These are your ultras, so to speak. This what you want to embrace in your club. As long as they're not.
We saw during COVID,
like Lazio or something. But I just think that's. Is it where they cut it in favor of corporate or for hospitality, or
No,
what?
just for more tickets going into a general ballot.
You see, there's an argument that your average fan that is not that does not have the capabilities of going to every game because they're behind in the queue, this gives them a little bit more of an opportunity. But I think it shouldn't be at the expense of the Ashburton Army, though.
Well, look, what we learned during COVID is that football is quite shit without fans and without an atmosphere.
100%.
Right? That's what we learned during COVID. If we didn't know it before, we know it now. We watched it during COVID. I remember in Fever Pitch, actually, in Nick Hornby's book, he says in there when he's, and I mean, that book was what, 1990, 91? And he says in that book about with the prices rising at that point. And he said he hopes that the people in charge of football realise that as well as going to watch Paul Merson, people also go to watch the people who watch Paul Merson. And I think that's something that to this day is very apt. They've priced a lot of people out of it. The average age of season ticket holders is getting older and older and older, basically rising by one year per year because people aren't giving them up. But also we're at the point where how does a 21-year-old afford these ticket prices? I couldn't have afforded that at 21.
But also what we've seen over the last season as well is like a renaissance in our fan base, a renaissance of atmosphere, of, real kind of attachment to the club.
Well, look how the fans reacted last year every time we went a goal down. And we conceded a lot of goals at home last year. And every one of them was greeted with a roar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you start just chipping away at that part of it, that's when you get this lull that we've had at the Emirates at the beginning of when we first went there, where there was always this
and
stigma.
there's been
when
such hard work done, right?
Yeah.
With that, because the Emirates, it never felt like home. It never felt like home. It felt like they put the banners up, and that didn't do the trick. They put the signage up, that didn't do the trick. It really has taken, like we said, the best part of 20 years to get to where we're at now. And that inclusivity was, it was the board and people around the club reaching out to the fans with, with the artwork around and getting the Ashburton Army together in that block. That's what caused it all. So to then destroy it just doesn't make any sense.
And is that a new concept with the season tickets that if you don't go to X amount of games, you get?
Yeah, it started a couple of years because
that's a good incentive
for a long, long time.
That's a really good thing.
It is. It's absolutely. If you don't use your season ticket, you should have it stripped. We've got a long way.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of people who will take that ticket, and that is absolutely true. Because you know what? If it's not being used, the odds are they're buying it to sell it. So I have no problem with them taking them off. That is absolutely fine with me. But I just think you need to look after the fans that create the atmosphere. You really do.
Yeah, especially considering where we're at now and where we've come to. So that's imperative.
Yeah, agreed. Well, hopefully that's another situation that gets sorted out. Although I'm not as optimistic on that one because there does seem to be a rift between them boys and the club, and I don't know how it gets sorted. So we will see how that comes out.
On another note, I know we don't have a lot of time, but just wanted to go back to something that was posted today by yours truly, Patrick Vieira's debut. I remember it vividly because I was there as well, like you. And I have to agree with your comment earlier today about it being it was like we'd had this void, which we did actually in that midfield. It was one of the biggest problems we had for quite a few years. The minute he came on, and we were losing at halftime, I think 1-0.
Yeah,
or we were 1-1.
It was 1-1.
1-0 or
1-1 when he
1-1.
Yeah,
we went on 1-4-1, didn't he? And it was like, what is this?
Yeah, that's what I said. It looked like an alien with superpowers had been dropped down from the sky and put into our midfield. I've never seen anything. I've never seen a debut like that ever in my life. I've never seen a debut like that. And it's funny, a mate of mine from school, a Sheffield Wednesday fan from Sheffield, was there that night in the away end. And we went into school the next day and we were in English together. And he come in and he said to me, we watched the champions of next year last night. He said, you are going to win the league next year. And that was off the back of Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
it's for those who didn't see our Twitter feed today, go check us out at the NN Pod. But basically, Patrick Vieira signed on this day in 1996. So that's what started all that off. But yeah, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, amazing. What was it? 3.5 million, something ridiculous like that.
4.5, I think it was
4.5.
the biggest steal we've ever
Unbelievable.
had.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, thank you for tonight.
Yes, mate. Nice one.
Catch up towards the end of the week. Hopefully, Justin will be with us towards the end of the week, and we'll preview the Palace game.
Sounds good, mate. Thank you.
Speak to you later. Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Take care.